Hold on to your hats, folks, because back in 2018, a trade twister ripped through the global economy. It was a whirlwind of tariffs, those pesky taxes on imports, unleashed by none other than the then commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump. The world watched, some with popcorn, some with antacids, as Trump aimed his tariff cannon directly at China, our economic frenemy. The goal? Make America buy American again. Trump claimed China was playing unfairly, stealing our jobs, and generally being a bad sport in the global marketplace. His solution? Slap a hefty tax on their goods, make them too expensive, and voila! Americans would rush back to good old American-made products. Sounds simple, right? Well, in the world of international trade, it's about as simple as a Rubik's Cube designed by M.C. Escher. The initial impact was about as subtle as a cow in a china shop. Prices jumped, businesses scrambled, and the stock market did its best impression of a roller coaster designed by a sadist. But hey, at least we were standing up to China, right? Well, about that. Now you might be thinking, tariffs, Steven? Sounds kinda boring. And normally, you'd be right. Tariffs are the economic equivalent of watching paint dry, if the paint was also arguing about import quotas. But in the hands of Donald Trump, tariffs became weapons, tools of economic warfare. See, a tariff is basically a tax on imported goods. So that Chinese-made flat-screen TV you've got your eye on, slap a tariff on it and suddenly it costs more. The idea is that this makes American-made products more appealing because hey, who doesn't love a bargain? Except, of course, it's not that simple. For starters, not everything we need is made in America anymore. Remember those manufacturing jobs Trump promised to bring back? Turns out you can't just wish them back into existence like a lost dog. So, when those Chinese goods get more expensive, guess who ends up footing the bill? That's right, you, the American consumer. Now Trump, he of the self-proclaimed art of the deal, figured he could bully China into submission with his tariff tactics. He believed that China needed us more than we needed them, and if he just squeezed hard enough, they'd cave and give us everything we wanted. It was a classic Trump move: talk tough, act impulsively, and hope for the best. But China, well, they don't scare easily. They've been playing the long game for centuries, and they weren't about to let a spray-tanned real estate mogul with a Twitter addiction push them around. So, what did they do? They retaliated. Remember those tariffs Trump put on Chinese goods? Well, China slapped their own tariffs on American goods. And not just any goods, mind you. They targeted things like soybeans, pork, and other agricultural products. Why? Because they knew it would hurt. They knew it would hit Trump right where it hurts. The heartland of America, those hard-working farmers who depend on exports to make a living. Section 4, eye for an eye, soybean for a smartphone. And hurt it did. The trade war escalated, with each side lobbing tariffs back and forth like economic grenades. American farmers caught in the crossfire saw their exports plummet. Soybeans, once a hot commodity in China, were left to rot in silos. The price of pork plummeted, leaving pig farmers in a real pickle. The Trump administration, realizing they might have miscalculated, started handing out billions of dollars in aid to farmers. Essentially, they were using taxpayer money to offset the damage caused by their own trade policies. It was like setting your house on fire and then demanding your insurance company buy you a new one. Meanwhile, American businesses, forced to pay more for Chinese imports, either had to raise prices for consumers or swallow the costs themselves, squeezing their profits. The trade deficit, which Trump swore he would shrink, actually grew larger. It was becoming increasingly clear that this trade war wasn't quite the winning strategy Trump had envisioned. Section 5, the American heartland, from farm to famine. Now let's talk about those farmers for a minute, shall we? Because they were hit particularly hard by this whole trade war debacle. See, China was a huge market for American agricultural products. We were sending them soybeans by the boatload, pork by the pig load, you name it. But then the tariffs hit, and suddenly those Chinese buyers were looking elsewhere for their soybeans and pork. The result? American farmers were left holding the bag, literally. Warehouses were overflowing with unsold crops, prices plummeted. Farmers, many already struggling to make ends meet, were driven to the brink. The Trump administration, in a classic case of too little, too late, started offering billions of dollars in aid to farmers. But even with the government handouts, many farmers couldn't recover from the losses. Some were forced to sell their farms, others went bankrupt. The very backbone of America, the heartland, was hurting. Section 6. A deal, but at what cost? Finally, in 2020, after 2 long years of economic skirmishes, the US and China signed what was dubbed the Phase 1 trade deal. China agreed to buy more American goods, including those soybeans and pork they'd been shunning. The tariffs, some of them at least, were eased. Trump declared victory, claiming to have secured a great deal for America. But had he? Sure, China was buying some American goods again, but they were also buying from other countries that hadn't just spent 2 years slapping tariffs on everything in sight. And those American businesses and consumers, they were still feeling the pinch of higher prices. The trade deficit? Still bigger than it was before Trump launched his tariff tirade. And those farmers? While some welcomed the return of Chinese buyers, many remained wary, uncertain if they could ever fully recover from the damage inflicted by the trade war. So did Trump's tariffs work? Did he win the trade war? Well, as with most things Trump, the answer is complicated. He showed China we weren't afraid to play rough, but at what cost? The American economy, and especially the American farmer, paid a steep price for Trump's trade war. And in the end, it's debatable whether any of it was actually worth it.